Hello and welcome to part 2 of our book club. And what have you been reading, Helen?
We have been reading The Emotionally Healthy Leader. This is our second video, and you've probably gauged from the first video, if you've watched it, that we absolutely love this book.
Absolutely. So just a quick recap from part 1, because we've done this book club version in 2 parts. Part 1 was focused on the inner life and part 2 on the outer life. Part 1, the inner life, included facing our shadow, leading out of our marriage or our singleness, part 3, and then slowing down for loving union and practicing a Sabbath delight, and 4 things which in and of itself hugely challenging. And then part 2, the outer life.
That's been looking at planning and decision making, culture and team building, power and wise boundaries, and endings and new beginnings. So kind of 4 more things that are kind of much more to do with the outworking of our leadership. But something we both really loved about this was that at the end of every chapter it went back to the 4 subjects from the first part and kind of asked questions around those, kind of challenging new ways of almost phrasing it so that you could think about them with relation to these 4 things. And we just want to share a couple of things that have really stood out to us and challenged us as we've been reading this. Becky, do you want to go?
Yeah, of course. So I think for me, it all in different ways as you go through a chapter, you can literally pick a billion points. But I think the one which really stuck to me was from the last chapter of the book, which is endings and new beginnings. And right now, that is exactly the season I'm in. I'm just ending my internship for last year with Onelife. And I'm looking to what might be a new beginning somewhere else. It feels like I'm bang in the middle of this process, and it doesn't automatically jump from ending something to beginning. There is often, and exactly where I'm finding myself, in the season of waiting. And just in this season of waiting, I think the real encouragement that which Peter Scazzero brings, I'm sure we've heard it a billion times, we've read it so many times through the Bible, of where God has used these times of waiting, these times of in the desert place, to just grow us again. And I think I've just loved that challenge of what is it God's maturing me in my faith, in my personal walk with him in this season. And I think it is just maturing once again what it is to really trust Jesus, that he is Lord over all, and whatever that might be, whether that's me pushing various different doors and being like, Lord, which one is right, or it's me just being, I just want to be with you, Father, and know you as my Lord more again. So that's been a little bit of my journey with this, and I'm just excited for what God has, but also excited for the now of just knowing him a little bit more. How about you, Helen?
Yeah, I love that. That's really helpful. I think the chapter on decision making, which I think, like we said in the first part, all the chapter titles, you're like, will this be relevant to me? But it really was. And he talks about this idea of indifference to making plans. Like when you go into a meeting, they said that in their church, they pray for each one of them to be indifferent to all the different options. And I know for me, often when I come into a meeting and I've got an idea and I've thought about it beforehand, I see it as my job to convince the rest of the team, this is a great idea, this is what we should do, I've already thought about it, sign off, say yes, let's make it happen. Just like as the person that's bringing the idea, I just always assumed that was my role. So I guess I just felt really challenged on that. Just, am I open to what God might want to do? My idea might be really good, but actually if it's not a God idea, then it's not right to do. And even like the day I read that chapter, we were literally just thinking about something we're going to be running in July, and I'd kind of thought, well, I don't want to charge for it, blah, 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 and I decided why that was, and I had my thinking, and someone asked, are we gonna charge for this? And I was like, no, I've already decided this. And then I just felt God say, what about this indifference? And so I just went away and prayed and was like, okay, God, I just want to be indifferent, and I'm not gonna reply to this email yet. I'm just gonna think about it. And then after kind of an hour or so, I was like, do you know what? I actually think that's a better idea. And kind of going around all the things that I've been worried about and why I decided that actually we weren't going to. It kind of made sense more than to charge. And it was just really interesting, this thing of being like, I'm actually just going to leave it. And like you're saying, Becky, almost that process of waiting and just saying, do you know what, God, whatever you want to do, that's fine. Even with something so small as that, I just really felt that was profound for me, actually. And I guess in my leadership of just being a bit less headstrong, I guess, and deciding and knowing what I want and going for it, but actually just saying, I'm open to other people's suggestions, and I'm open to what God might want to do as well. that was definitely helpful for me.
I that's so challenging, even hearing that idea of indifference in the decision making. I think it's we were talking earlier how interesting it is the order of the chapters through this book, particularly in part 2. You know, it talks about planning decision making. Alongside the next chapter is healthy team and how we do team well, and having a healthy culture in your team. And I just think that's so interesting how that comes side by side when you're trying to make a decision perhaps in a team, but of course it comes out of a relationship, to have that indifference together rather than seeing it as a little bit of like a power struggle. I just really helpful. Thanks, Helen. Talking I was thinking about my own decision makings right now, and I'm like, how often have I gone into it being like, oh Lord, I want this, give me this, rather than being like, Lord, I just want to be indifferent, I want to seek you rather than with my agenda. Really interesting.
Definitely. And I think like there is that balance, isn't there, of being like, you don't want to become like personality-less in being like, I'm so indifferent to everything always. But I guess it's like, you know, being really aware of ourselves and like having our wants and needs and bringing that and still saying, you know what, this is my preference right now, but actually I lay it down, which I think is just interesting and countercultural to say, do you know what, I'm not going to push my agenda, I'm going to say what I want, but actually I'm open. So I just everything about this book I think is incredible. We've both absolutely loved it, haven't we?
We have, and I love how applicable it is, like unbelievably the internal inner side with the outer side, and the challenges on every chapter, like the questions always being like, oh, little worksheets or tasks it gets you to do, are so practical and so like I take in so much more. And I think particularly as you mentioned earlier, the 4 points every end of every chapter, particularly in the second half, it goes back to the 4 things about your inner life, and a bit how every season brings up new things. So like if for myself right now in this season of waiting that I've already talked about, I can totally see in myself new things of my shadow side, to use that very dramatic language, which are coming up, you know, that I'm massively independent. I have absolutely grabbed hold of what the culture is telling me, that I need to be a strong independent woman, and like that means back away all any kind of sort of support that is weakness of mine. I do struggle to seek help, and just to really just again bringing up those things which I don't want to face, and where that sort of culture in my like outlook in my life has come from. Really challenging. I love it. I love that.
Definitely, it's been really helpful for both of us in so many ways. And I guess the one thing we would say is, if you're picking this up, it probably is it's aimed at people working in ministry, so for us I guess that's perfect, but we would say if you're not working in ministry, it's definitely so helpful, especially the first 4 chapters, but if you're a youth pastor or working for a church or a charity, the second 4 chapters I think are actually even more challenging, and particularly like they kind of speak right into certain things, which is just incredible. But we would definitely still recommend it if you are working in a secular workplace. I think it would still be incredibly helpful, and especially if you volunteer even like in a small group or in a team at church, this stuff is really invaluable for that space as well, to bring healthy team and healthy culture into that space.
Oh, absolutely. And we obviously, get yourself a copy, get reading it whenever way you can if you haven't already. I think we talked about how it's a book we reckon we want to challenge ourselves to read fairly regularly, just to be again reminding ourselves and challenging ourselves on very different facets of our life. We would love more than anything to hear how you guys have found it, what you've maybe thought, oh, I'm not sure about that, or what you've absolutely loved, or what you've put in practice and how that's gone. Please do let us know.
Definitely, leave a comment below, or like, or send us an email. We love to hear your stories. So we'll be putting up a new poll with 2 new books, which we're really excited about. We can't wait to dig into another one, so please do vote on that on our Instagram stories, and we'll let you know what that book will be.
Absolutely. Emotionally healthy leader, done.